Hi there, Sofia here from CoachSofiaFitness.com. Today I want to talk to you about how I do my own rehab and recovery plan at home. I also want to show you the tools that I use for self-myofascial release, how I structure stretching, and how I do my own activation and strengthen exercises to make sure that I maintain muscular balance and avoid pain. I have been doing this for years now. It's very rare that I needed to go to a clinic or get a massage or a physiotherapy session. In fact, I haven't been to a physiotherapy clinic since 2014. I believe that was the last time that I was in a clinic. And I think I had dry needling done maybe a few times after that, but I haven't needed to go to get consistent treatments for years now, and it's been working for me. And I know that you may say, oh, but you've studied this, you've spent years learning about this, you're a corrective exercise specialist, but I honestly and truly believe that if you put just a little bit of time to learn the basics, you don't need to go in detail on these things. If you can just learn the basics and understand how muscles work and how to maintain balance, you can do a lot at home, and you can use the treatments, you can keep using them, but you can use those things to supplement your own work. I think that at the end of the day, we have responsibility. We have to take responsibility for our health. If you have an interest in learning, and if you truly enjoy exercise and learning about these things, it's going to be really simple. So a few of the very important tools that I use almost every day, and they were an amazing investment, are of course the foam roller and the massage ball. And if you don't have a massage ball, you can get a tennis ball, anything that's round and it has foam, hard foam, so that you can use it to get deep into the smaller muscles that the foam roller cannot get to. These are the two first important things that will get a lot done. So this is the foam roller that I use, and I actually want to upgrade the foam roller to get a longer one, same brand, but just a longer roller. It just feels more comfortable on the back, because this one I feel like it's not wide enough. Sometimes I want to roll my whole back without having to do each side alone, for example, the latissimus dorsi, and I think that having a longer roller would be beneficial. And again, the massage ball that I use is this one. Before I do any activation work or strengthening exercises, I have to first go through self-myofascial release, and usually the muscles that tend to get tight and overactive are the hip flexors, which include the quads, the psoas, the TFL. If you want to work on the piriformis, and you know that you need to be strengthening the gluteus medius, the gluteus maximus, restoring balance, and make sure to stabilize the hips, definitely start with some myofascial, self-myofascial release first, because if you don't release these muscles, then the glutes will be inhibited. They won't be able to go into that full extension. The glutes and the hip flexors, they're opposite muscles, so the hip flexors flex the hips, the glutes do the opposite. They hold the leg into that full extension. So when the hip flexors are extremely tight and overactive, the glutes are not going to be able to go into that full extension. So it's important to inhibit the hip flexors first to release that tightness, so that you can make sure to work the glutes fully and effectively. This applies to all of the other muscles. So for example, if you want to work your back, make sure that you do some release here at the front. Make sure to release the front delts, the chest, and this is where the massage ball is really effective and useful, because you can work on these muscles and smaller muscles against the wall or on the floor, which would be really hard. I mean, it could be done, but you're gonna have to work around it. You're gonna probably have to place the roller vertically, and just the massage ball just makes this process easier. But there are definitely ways that you can do it with the roller. It just won't be as effective. So again, always started with the self-myofascial release to make sure you're inhibiting and releasing the tight overactive muscles that may not let you strengthen and activate the muscles that you want to activate. An easier way to do this is also to just look at the muscles anatomy and just see which muscles, their placement, their location, and see the muscles around them and try to learn, you know, which muscle does the opposite of that muscle that I'm trying to activate, and see if that muscle has any tightness, and you can go ahead and release it. And just one thing also, you know, when you're getting your treatments, you're getting your massages, just know that, you know, if the pain hasn't gone forever, you're just kind of addressing the symptoms. That was the mistake that I made for years. I just kept treating the symptoms. Of course, if you don't have any serious disc issues and it's mainly a muscular problem, then of course assessing your body at home. I have a blog post I will link below with images on how to do some assessments, and I also encourage you to check out my programs, which have step-by-step thorough assessments that you can do at home to see what underlying muscular imbalances are creating the pain or contributing to the pain. Because if you just keep stretching and foam rolling, but you don't even know what you're fixing, you know, you're kind of just doing guesswork. It's important to first identify the problem so that you can go ahead and work on it and be mindful about it. For example, you can do reassessments every 2 or 3 weeks to see your progress and to see where you're still stuck, where you need work on. So an assessment is just a great tool to use throughout your whole healing journey that gives you feedback on the work that you've put in. Without it, you kind of don't really know if what you've been working on for the past few weeks is producing any results. Bad results or good results, you just don't know. So it's important to track these things and have an assessment done. The tools that I use for activation exercises, I like to use the bands. As you guys seen, I've been using the bands in my videos. I don't know where the gray one went, but I mainly use these 2 bands. So this one is medium resistance, this one is easier. So usually I start with this one, very light, and then I go and I use this one next. What I love about the bands is that as you're working against that resistance, you're consciously thinking or connecting with that area and that muscle. And they also help you do the exercise with proper form. So for example, when you're squatting and you have a tendency for the knees to go inward, using a band will force you to open up your knees so that they're more aligned with your feet. Because you're gonna feel if your knees are going inwards, you're gonna feel the band sliding. So they provide you with that feedback, and you're always connected to that area that you're working. So I absolutely love using the bands, and I use them for activation as well as during the exercises. I have a few different bands. I have a loop band that I also use, and I have this one here that I use sometimes as well to do lat activation exercises. The other tool that I use for activation are very light dumbbells. Whenever you want to do any activation work for the back muscles, the postural muscles, anything that's just for warm-up, you want to use very light dumbbells. And I know that I shared this in a video recently, but you don't even need to use weights. You can just use your arms. Sometimes the exercise will be challenging enough that just having your arms up and doing those exercises will provide you with enough resistance. So when it comes to the self-myofascial release, stretching and strengthening, you want to be doing the self-myofascial release whenever you feel tightness, really. Like, it's very safe. You can do it on a daily basis. For example, if you're working at home or in your office and you feel like your hips tighten up because of the sitting position and you're doing it for hours, so it's very natural for the hip flexors to get really tight and overactive. And if that affects your hips and the piriformis, if you have chronic piriformis tightness or piriformis syndrome and that affects it, then you want to make sure that you're kind of doing it on a daily basis. And it's part of your maintenance, because we know the cause of that pain, which is the sitting position, but we can't really get rid of that unless you try to change that posture. For example, you switch up to a stand-up desk and you're spending less time sitting. But if we don't fix the root cause, which is that posture, the prolonged sitting, you're still gonna get that tightness. So maintaining muscular balance will be to release the quads and the TFL and the hip flexors on a daily basis, and that would only take a few minutes. It's not a lot of time. A lot of people have a problem with that, and I don't honestly understand why. For example, you may feel like, oh my God, I have to do this every day. Why do I have to foam roll every day? But if you think about it, it's just like there are certain activities that we do throughout the day to maintain our health that we don't apply the same standard to, for example, brushing our teeth, showering, or just certain things that you do. But when someone asks you, why do you do them every day? You're saying, well, it's just part of maintaining my teeth or staying healthy. But then when it comes to our muscular system, we have issue with doing stretching or foam rolling because we think, why am I doing it? We have different expectations. We just want the body to function 100% all the time without doing any work. And, we just have to make it a natural thing to maintain our muscular system and nervous system. It's just part of our daily maintenance. So again, foam rolling can be done almost every day. The stretching usually comes after the foam rolling, and the reason why is because when we develop trigger points that develop in the muscle tissue when it's overused and it's extremely tight, we want to release those trigger points. And usually you would feel them when you foam roll, and you will be rolling slowly, and then you reach an area and it hurts, and you do want to stay there and breathe and relax for about 20 to 30 seconds until it gets released. And the reason why we want to do that, we want to do the foam rolling before the stretching, is because those trigger points do not get released with stretching. You have to apply direct pressure, controlled pressure, for them to get released. But lengthening the muscle tissue will not release the trigger points. So just remember that. You have to do the foam rolling first, and then you stretch. Otherwise, just think of it as an elastic. If there is a knot in it and you're stretching the elastic out, it's just gonna get tighter. It's not gonna release the knot. So you have to foam roll first, stretch to improve flexibility, and then you can go ahead and do the activation exercises. So I want you to follow this order. If you have to skip one thing, usually I skip the stretching parts. So I would do the foam rolling, especially when I want to do a workout. I usually don't like to stretch before my workouts. For me, stretching is more like a cool down. I do it after the workout, so I would do the foam rolling, and then I go ahead and do the activation, and then I do the workout. So if you just want to do rehab, you're not going to be doing a workout, you can do the foam rolling, stretching, and activation. Again, I go into detail with these things inside my program Piriformis Control, where I literally show you how to do these things. But in general, this is the correct order. When you get to the activation, again, the first two parts really help us get the most out of activation, as well as the joints can move freely. A lot of times doing the bridge exercise will show you can't go into that full extension because you feel a lot of tightness here. So that's a good example of when you're not doing the release first. You can't really push up that much because you feel like your thighs won't let you because it's just really tight. You can't go higher. But if you spend more time releasing the hip flexors, then you can go into that full extension. With the activation, you usually want to have a rest day in between, especially if you're new to it and it's just the first time that you're activating your muscles and you feel a little sore. It's just good to have that rest day where you can let the body recover and build strength, because usually it's during the rest days that the body can regenerate and grow stronger. So you can be doing the activation exercises 3 times a week, and you can follow the same order. But as I said before, with the foam rolling, you can do that every day. So do not roll on the joints and don't roll on the spine. So make sure you're always on the muscle. If you feel tingling or numbness, that's a sign that you're doing something wrong, that you're pushing on a nerve, to immediately take the foam roller off. So always stay on the muscles. And also when it comes to stretching, if a muscle doesn't feel tight, you don't need to stretch it. So only focus on the muscles that do feel tightness. And usually after you do the foam rolling, you can start to stretch, but if you feel like you're not really feeling much of a stretch, the muscle itself doesn't need to be stretched further. Just remember that too much stretching can usually cause pain, because certain joints, they do need stability more than mobility. So be aware of that. For example, the hips, they do need some mobility, but at the same time, if you overdo it, they can get too mobile, and then they start to affect the lumbar spine, which needs stability. So I always like to do gentle stretches for the hips, and I like to do mobility exercises more than just aggressive static stretching. You can focus stretching on the chest muscles because we tend to sit like this all day, typing and texting and doing the dishes and cooking and all that. So this is kind of our default posture. So anything that stretches out the chest, opens up your chest, is great. I really like to do static stretching more for the upper body, and I prefer to do foam rolling and gentle stretches on the lower body. Again, you work with your body. You have to learn more about your body. We're all different, and just learning from my own experience dealing with chronic pain, I know that my hips tend to get extremely tight, but when I overdo it with the stretching, I never get the results that I want. I have learned the hard way that foam rolling works best for me, and with some gentle stretching. So just see which stretches, see which ones your body responds positively to and stick to them. This is kind of why I don't go to yoga classes, or I'm very careful following yoga routines from YouTube, because I've experienced a lot of flare-ups during, whenever I push myself to do something someone is telling me to do, because what may work for them doesn't work for me. I have to adapt everything to my own, where I am in my healing journey, and where I am, how I'm progressing with flexibility and building flexibility. And again, you don't need, depending on your goals, right? You don't need to be hyper flexible. Unless you're a yoga teacher, that's actually your goal. But my goal is not that. So I do some stretching to make sure that, the muscles are flexible enough, but I don't overdo it, because I'm not interested in being hyper flexible, and not interested in doing, those really cool yoga poses. That's just not my goal. So it depends on your goal. Just keep that in mind. We all really enjoy the yoga routines on YouTube, but just make sure when you're doing the stretch, just listen to your body and notice where you're pushing it. You can take a step back and find a modification for the exercise. Nobody's looking at you if you're doing those things at home. So just be aware of how your body is responding. And if you're feeling like numbness, or you're feeling just pain shooting down your hip, maybe you should take a step back and just either rest until the next stretch or pose, or you can modify the exercise altogether. And I've been applying that to everything, like gym, classes, things on YouTube. If something doesn't feel right, I'm not gonna do it, because I have to listen to my body, and also I have to work through that. Like also, while taking into account my own physiology, biomechanics and all those things. Some people are shorter than others. Like I'm tall, certain movements, they look different when I do them. When another person who's shorter does them, they look completely different. So for example, squatting, I notice that I'm squatting, I kind of lean forward a little more because I'm taller. When another person does it, it looks different with how their body's working with that. So the stance, I have to have a different stance. I do squatting better with a wider stance. And as long as you're doing the exercise with proper form, it really doesn't matter how wider or narrow the stance is, as long as the knees are following the feet, and you're following the same principles and working on those things. But my point is that work with your body, listen to your body, do what works for you. Anyway, I hope this was helpful, and if you are new here, please make sure to subscribe, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and comment below. And again, if you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate to leave me a comment below, and I will see you in the next video.